the China situation is very fluid right now, and I don't know which way it goes. It's a good question, and it is interesting that many of these big companies are trying to do business elsewhere, like Apple, and they're the biggest one, certainly, at least from America. I don't know where it goes. Apple is so far still meeting its numbers. They're
Yeah.
still the most valuable company, and it would be great to see some of that come back here, more manufacturing, more jobs. I just don't know where any of this goes. Um, the tariffs are we talked about this last week, a big question mark as to what happens. Do they stick around? Are they inflationary? Yes, normally they are. And what happens to the business back and forth that we do as a global society with these tech companies?
Hi, and welcome to the Silicon Insider podcast. Hey, Scott, how are you?
I am well, thank you. How are
It's a
you?
spectacularly beautiful day in Silicon Valley, so we can't complain.
That's right.
Okay, so first up, Nvidia. Now, Nvidia is apparently again climbing. I guess the world got over its deep seek terror and are beginning to understand its strengths and weaknesses and are kind of pretty much dismissing it, uh, which enables Nvidia to come back. And the shares rose Thursday just 0.2% to $139.55. But one analyst out there, John Vinn, who rates Nvidia shares, raised his price target on the stock to 190 from 180 for this year. And that's an expectation that Nvidia is going to come out with some really good numbers early next week. What do you think? Do you think it's going to be? I mean, that's a 35% stock price jump in the months ahead over the astounding growth they've had over the last 2 years. Was that even possible? I mean,
Yeah,
they're pretty thin
yeah,
air, pretty rarefied air up there.
it really is. And people have been asking, is it possible for several moves that NVIDIA has made over the last couple of years? And this company just does not stop. I mean, you think about, you mentioned at the top the DeepSeek scare that took about $600 billion off the market cap of NVIDIA in one day. Within a few weeks, it's got almost all of that back. Almost every
Yes.
dollar is back. And, they're once again threatening Apple for the top spot. They are still the hottest AI play, I would argue. And can they keep doing it again? You know, Logic would say, whoa, things have to slow down and we have to see AI actually make money in some way. But we haven't really been using logic with this for a
No.
while. It's just been profit.
Well, as you said several weeks ago, when you are on the top of the pyramid, when you're number one, you can't make any mistakes. You have to be perfect. And there was this sort of sense that we talked about 3 months ago that NVIDIA might not be able to meet up with its demand. It might not get its product out on time. Well, apparently, they did get their Blackwell B200 chips out on time. But not only that, apparently they have a higher than expected supply of them, which is just amazing. From the question of can they get them out there at all to, oh, we actually have overproduction. We're going to be able to really make a lot of moves, and a lot of companies waiting in the queue are going to buy our stuff. Impressive, at least. And then we got Google saying we're going to use these Blackwell chips. We're going to show you that we're going to put them into our cloud operation, and you get to yeah, they're going to let you try it out in the next few weeks. Mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean, they are really the arms dealer for the AI war right now.
Yeah.
And if you think back to the dot-com boom and the success of, say, Cisco Systems, everyone wanted to get into the dot-com game, and Cisco had the back end, the less sexy stuff, the
Yeah.
plumbing, if you will, but it was super important and everyone wanted it and needed it. And while the dot-com, boom was hot, Cisco was making hay all the time. And that's sort of what NVIDIA is doing now. I just wonder if the AI boom will prove to be super profitable and make it seem worthwhile to keep buying all these high-end expensive chips or not. But for now, it certainly is.
Well, they already have a very impressive headquarters, but apparently they've gone out now and got Uber developer John Sobrato Sr. to build them a brand spanking new building. I'm not even sure the tags are off all the stuff in their current building. So they must be expecting big things. Now, Nvidia, we talk about them so much, but really their market has been mostly servers. But we got a glimpse at CES last month when we heard that they may be looking at, or at least they say they could accomplish if they wanted to, creating home supercomputers for a cheap price. I mean, that suggests they're looking at the consumer market now.
Well,
Well,
remember, NVIDIA chips were super hot to superpower gaming systems,
yes,
gaming
in their day,
consoles.
they sold to teenagers and 25-year-olds, but now we're talking that much power backed up by AI for the price of, well, a MacBook or a little bit more. That's mind-boggling. And if they can tap into that gigantic consumer market, I don't know what stops them.
I mean, the only thing that would stop them is if the consumer market isn't that gigantic. And I would say that for home PCs, some people like it simple, some people like a laptop that's less expensive. And I would say the same for AI. Is there a gigantic consumer market? That's what I keep coming back to. We don't know. Now we're starting to see, even from NVIDIA, things that are consumer focused. They
Yeah.
just came out with a way to use AI to help people learn sign language. So this, along with some of the medical capabilities that you're hearing about and the search capabilities, are things that we might use in our everyday lives, depending on
Yeah.
the language we speak or what we're searching for, or whether or not we're in healthcare. But that is starting to touch a lot of lives. And I think that's important to sort of signal that AI is more than just a chat GPT kind of toy. It may actually have some real world implications that could eventually bring some of these companies like OpenAI a whole lot of money in the future.
Well, the consumer market's always taken by stealth, or at least almost always, not up front. And I find that I'm asking Google a lot of English and, full sentence questions that are fairly complex. And that thing's coming back with answers in a heartbeat. Now, they're not always on track, but, the pace of technological Moore's Law means it's going to get better and better. And this new generation that we're hearing about of Chat GPT, where it's going to become more of a thinking uh, program later this summer. We could find ourselves using AI all day long and not even thinking about it because it's invisible.
Right. That's sort of the promise of it, is just talking to our phones,
Yeah.
having it somehow think about what the answer would be, and then talking back to us in real time. And that's search on steroids, is what they're calling it. And I get it. That is, you think about how people sort of used Siri, and this would be that, but so much more conversational, so much quicker, with so
Right.
much more information at your fingertips. And I think that's what people are talking about when they say, hey, we might use this all day long at work, at home, in all these different areas of our lives.
So the competition, I'm looking at one person who looked at the marketplace, and they said that basically NVIDIA is still 10 years ahead of the competition. Now, that's pretty heady competition. I'm not sure that's the case, but they've still got to be a generation ahead, maybe two. And in terms of Moore's Law, 10 years is three generations ahead. So that's an awful lot to catch up to.
Yeah, I don't know that they're that far ahead. How could they be? But
Yeah.
the AMDs, the Broadcoms, they're making some hay too, but just not as much. And NVIDIA is certainly the leader, not just in a first mover way, but the leader in the we really grab the bull by the horns
Yeah.
way, way ahead of everybody else, and have just accelerated the pace even from that. And it's really impressive. I mean, this company has been firing on this way for a long time.
You've talked to the company a lot. Do you get a sense of their secret sauce? I mean, I got a hint once I think I told you about it that my one of my son's cars broke down right in front of Nvidia headquarters. And streaming out of it were not 25-year-olds. They all looked like they were veteran chip guys. That we think of it's being done by these wunderkinds, but it might be middle-aged guys who came from Intel and AMD and Qualcomm and all the rest. Have you seen that, or is there another secret sauce they've got?
Well, I think both. I've seen it, and yes, it's a mix of ages, and that makes sense. Their founder is still the CEO, and he's got to be the longest running CEO, that's founded a company in Silicon Valley. I mean, it's super impressive. And I would say that's the other secret sauce is Jensen Huang. He knows how to lead. He knows how to motivate. He says he doesn't take one-on-one meetings. He'll talk about this sometimes, but he'll always speak to a group, and
Yeah.
he will seek uh, opinions. He will seek advice. He admits, I'm not the smartest person at Nvidia. And, imagine a leader, a billionaire, being willing to sort of sit back and say, I know I'm not the smartest person here, and lead the conversation with that. And so really he's impressive in ways both of leadership, but also in ways of he still listens, even though he succeeded so much.
So is he the secret sauce? I mean, Intel became the most important company in the world because of Andy Grove. And Andy didn't allow failure. He had a whip hand all the time, fiery guy. He and I had many battles. That's one type of management, but maybe this other kind of management is more effective in this era.
In this era, maybe right. I mean, no one would say that Andy Grove wasn't effective. His whole thing was only the paranoid survive, right? Jensen Huang is, hey, I want everybody to succeed, even our competitors, because eventually that brings us success. And that's a tough thing to do in a very competitive Silicon Valley. But he will say, hey, these quantum guys that their stock went down because of something I said, I'm going to invite them all to GTC and we'll talk about it. I'm not going to just sort of put them out there as a different kind of computing. I'm going to
Yeah.
invite them to our annual shindig, and let's talk about how we can all grow and all make money. And that's something to be said. It's not that he's not maybe a little paranoid or a lot competitive. He is, but
Yeah.
there is something to be said for, hey, if everybody gets the shot to succeed and we're the best, you're still going to be eating our dust.
One of the things I never realized is that his cousin is the president and CEO of AMD. Did you know that?
Lisa Sue?
Yeah.
I did not know they were cousins. Wow.
I'm probably completely wrong, but I've read this in a couple of places. If that's the case, we have family running trillion-dollar companies right now, and they're just down the street from each other.
Well, and I think there was a time, maybe a year and a half ago, we were trying to pick the CEO of the year, and I think it came down to those two. And if they're having Thanksgiving dinner together, that's amazing.
Thanksgiving
I had
something,
not
yeah.
heard that.
They
Let
better have
me
the
look this up.
101st Airborne guarding their house.
It says Huang is Sue's first cousin once removed. That's
Okay.
according to the internet, according to the Google AI search.
And the internet never lies. So there you
that
go.
they are.
Does that surprise you? That's amazing.
That is amazing. I mean, that's a lot of CEO talent in one family. That's
One
a great
family
stat.
and a
I
lot
was
of
not aware of that.
and a lot of net worth and a lot of revenues. So interesting.
That's good.
Okay, so I have one more quote, and this is from a guy named Munster at Deepwater. And he said, investors still have this concern about when the party is going to end. The real catalyst for the stock will be in their April quarter as data points trickle in about CapEx, capital expenditures, and new products that are getting launched. We're investors, but we're hunkering down thinking this is probably going to be a long ride to full recovery. So, two alternate views. We'll find out. We'll get a hint of what's coming early next week. It'll get a lot of attention. Okay, the other big company, the one that NVIDIA is competing with for the biggest company in the world, and that's or in Silicon Valley, Apple. And I have two Apple stories, but I want to get to one right now, and then we'll get to the final one at the end of the show. Apple is hinting that it's interested in making humanoid robots, a top analyst said. They're looking at humanoid and non-humanoid robots. Now, Apple's gone down various side paths over the last few years, autonomous vehicles and that sort of thing. Are you getting any rumors out there about robots? It would seem kind of logical that they might go into robots.
I mean, first, only rumors. And secondly, it's only logical if you believe that these humanoid robots are going to be in our homes. And there are companies that have worked for years on this. And I would say, granted, maybe I'm a little more skeptical than some, but I would say we're not really that close to having humanoid robots in our homes doing our chores. So if Apple is talking about this, they've either been working on it in stealth, which is very possible, or they're going to wait until the first wave or two, I don't know, breaks our glasses and, rips our laundry and does whatever they're going to do. But,
strangles the cat. Yeah.
I mean, we have Roombas and
Yeah.
Amazon Echoes to.
But robots were one of the hot items at CES this year.
Yeah.
And smart robots and smart homes.
Right. Smart homes have been a thing for decades. And
Right.
come on, we have a Nest thermostat and maybe a refrigerator that tells you you're out of milk. I wouldn't call that really smart yet.
Yeah, but I want my Jetsons made, and we've been promised that since 1965.
And flying cars, which we
Flying cars,
just got a little taste of this week. Yeah, I think the whole robotic thing is exciting because of that. It's something that people grew up watching in some way, right? And we're either scared of it because we grew up watching, I don't know, The Day the Earth Stood Still, or we're excited about it because we are, going to these Elon Musk events and seeing these robots that are sort of walking around, or we're watching the Boston Dynamic dogs. But, we're not, it feels like we're not anywhere near there yet. And so Apple, they would be the company, right, to make a consumer product that we all need. But how close are we really to these things becoming consumer products?
Okay, I'm going to take the really cynical view, which is name a major new product platform Apple has introduced since Steve Jobs died.
No, I think the only new thing was the watch, the wearable.
Yeah, but that was his idea.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so it was already in the works. So I haven't seen the whole point of Apple in its incredible decade there was it produced multi-trillion dollar platform after another, not products per se, platforms, which is how the electronics revolution keeps moving forward, is through platforms. And I've seen great products from Apple. I've seen innovative stuff from Apple, but I haven't seen category creations, not since Steve.
Right. And I would only counter that with what new categories have come out, period, in the tech industry.
Yes. And we've talked about this before, that where is the revolutionary new product?
Right. It's been a while.
AI is close. I mean, AI is an impressive new product, but where's the new hardware platform that we all have to have and we carry around, and it's on our desk and it's in our car? I haven't seen it in years.
I agree. It's and that's what makes that decade all the more amazing, right?
Yeah, amazing. Now, I know some people are wearing smart rings now for health purposes, but it hasn't caught fire. I mean, it seems to be slowly getting accepted by more and more people, but it's not an iPhone, where everybody goes, I have to have that today, and I'll sleep out in front of the Apple store to get it.
Right. Just this week, Apple, as you and I speak, came out with a new phone, kind of an upgrade. They call it the 16E.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that at the end.
Yes. Okay, never mind.
I want to get through some of this other stuff. Chinese leader Xi Jinping had a symposium for business executives where he announced that, well, we're going to stop cracking down on successful capitalists, and we're going to reassert technology. Which, two things. First, it shows just how much trouble the Chinese economy is in, because they're in a mess, and everybody's leaving, including Tim Cook, I mean, he's down there in India now, talking to Indian government and that sort of thing to move his Chinese factories down there. And China is extremely worried about that. And we have all these other companies leaving, technology companies. And it's the classic thing. Oh, we're gonna reassert technology and become a leader again. In other words, we're going to reassert capitalism, says the head of the Communist Party. And it ain't going to happen. They can't allow capitalism to really do well. They can let a flower, million flowers bloom, but the idea of having large corporations, and the reminder of that was the surprise guest of this symposium, Jack Ma. Now, of Alibaba. Now, I thought that he would had been in a shallow grave for the last couple years somewhere, or buried in some dungeon. All of a sudden, he's back on the scene. He looks pretty healthy. I don't know what they did with him, but this guy was the most successful businessman in China, and they erased him for years. I don't even know what that foretells or what it means, or it's just like Xi saying, "Oh, get him out of the box and let's get all this stuff revived again and get China back in the world economy." What do you think? Were you shocked when you saw him?
Yeah, it's funny on the Chinese side, it was surprising to see Jack Ma back. On the Japanese side, I was a little surprised to see Masayoshi Son at the White House talking
Yeah.
about AI and all the money that SoftBank is going to put forward. And so it's interesting to see what is going on and what is sort of not going on with the new presidential administration. There is this
Yeah.
almost Cold War business-wise with China that we have. Is that why some companies are leaving? Is it fear of tariffs that may happen and may actually last a while
Yeah,
this
well, there were a
time?
lot more leaving before tariffs. A lot of them were leaving because, well, I knew some guys who were over there and was like, "Are you being watched all the time?" And I said, "Well, probably." And what kind of car do you drive? Well, I have a Tesla at home, but I had to rent a Chinese electric car because, well, nowadays you can get your windows destroyed in your Tesla. Also in Oregon, by the way, I know there have been attacks where people break the windows and leave a message like, you
Oh,
know, and now in Oregon we have guys shooting up Tesla stores. So we're not immune from that, but there is this sort of anti-West attitude that suddenly emerged in the last year, and so I don't know what to make of it. I have a hard time believing that they're suddenly going to embrace the market system again, like dang years ago, but maybe
hey, they're fighting at hockey games, for goodness sakes.
they're
I'm
what?
kidding. They always fight at hockey games.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
the Canadians and the Americans. I think the China situation is very fluid right now, and I don't know which way it goes. It's a good question, and it is interesting that many of these big companies are trying to do business elsewhere, like Apple, and they're the biggest one, certainly, at least from America. I don't know where it goes. Apple is so far still meeting its numbers. They're
yeah.
still the most valuable company, and it would be great to see some of that come back here, more manufacturing, more jobs. I just don't know where any of this goes. The tariffs are we talked about this last week, a big question mark as to what happens. Do they stick around? Are they inflationary? Yes, normally they are. And what happens to the business back and forth that we do as a global society with these tech companies?
Right. Okay, well, one company that may be coming here, TikTok. Okay, so we've heard all of Elon Musk and this consortium off of the TV show and all of this kind of stuff, and all of a sudden out of the blue, this wealthy Wyoming entrepreneur has made an offer to buy TikTok for nearly $50 billion. Okay, and apparently he's 40 years old, Reed Rasner. He's founded several firms in the state and heads up a media company. And he's offered, well, he wants controlling stake in TikTok's assets, operations, and proprietary algorithm for 47.5. And he wants to establish it in Wyoming, that tech center. Uh, Interesting. Um, I had a feeling when I was on the BBC last week, they said, well, you know, suddenly Trump has done a turnaround on TikTok and, and he's fighting Congress and all that. And I thought, by the look on Trump's face, because he had a little smile on his face as he was talking about TikTok, I figured that the bids were coming in and they hadn't surfaced yet. And here's the first one. Now, you think China's going to give up TikTok? American TikTok? Is it
They
worth?
have not made any indication that they're willing to give up TikTok. So all of
Yeah,
these bidders, while interesting and the dollar figures are staggering, we have not heard from China that they're open for business on this yet. So I obviously don't know how negotiations are going, if they even exist. But really, we just don't know what's going on, even
yeah.
though
For
we
all
had.
we know, China doesn't care about the money. China wants the this beachhead in the United States, and they're willing to, forego, you know, pretty sizable amounts of dough to keep that here. I mean, we've not gotten any indication otherwise.
Right. And that's important because the big fear is not, ooh, China's making money off of our kids doing dances and giving their information. It's the data that's being transferred. It's the back and forth of it all. And that's what has people understandably nervous, not money. So business people are thinking this is a money equation. And I think you're right. It may not be a money equation.
Well, and I think we're running out of time. I mean, it got extended, what, 90 days from when Congress was going to shut down TikTok.
Okay,
And we're a couple weeks into that now.
but it's also like, okay, TikTok is breaking the law. Oracle breaking the law by backing TikTok. Apple and Google breaking the law by putting it back in the App Store. So everything is still running, yeah, just fine.
And it seems to me that we don't know what's going on sub rosa. These guys coming back and carrying TikTok again suggests that the word is out that TikTok's going to get bought. But we have no above the surface. There's no indication in China's being, China. So
Right.
I guess we just have to wait and see. I'll
Yes.
be watching the news when you cover it.
Thank you.
Okay, government news, real quick. We have a new leader of the Federal Trade Commission, and they're opening an inquiry into whether a wide range of online services from social media giants like to ride-sharing companies like Uber Technologies censored users in the recent years. And we have a new FTC chairman, Andrew Ferguson, who said the agency is looking for the public to comment on big tech censorship. They're actually asking us to tell them if we've been censored. It looks like, we may have had all those tech lords at the inauguration, but down there in the various agencies, they're not going to let up, even with a new guard in place.
I was going to say that the presence, though, of Musk and all of this, I think is going to give a lot of leeway to a lot of tech, a lot of privacy issues that we may be worried about.
That's what we thought, but I don't know. Also, the SEC announced the creation of the Cyber and Emerging Technologies Unit, CETU, and you think, oh, well, that's good, but it turns out it replaces the Crypto Assets and Cyber Unit, which was about twice as big. So, uh, big story, but not really the story we think it is. They're closing things down, and then but their job is to use social media, the dark web, or false websites if they find it perpetrating fraud. If they find hacking to obtain material, non-public information, takeovers of retail brokerage accounts, fraud involving blockchain technology, the usual stuff, but with half as many people. I think that gives us a kind of hint where how much priority this has now. You just nod.
Yeah,
Here
look,
we go again. Yeah,
the crypto guys are going to do fine. The tech guys are going to do fine in this current administration,
yeah,
unless and until they realize tariffs are inflationary and the market doesn't like that. And if they lose capital because of a dropping stock market, all of a sudden these great things aren't so great. Just ask farmers right now how things are going, or federal employees
yeah.
who maybe voted for an administration that said job growth and promptly cut what, thousands or tens of thousands of jobs,
Almost
things,
hundreds of thousands
yeah,
now.
things could get a little dicey.
Oh
It
yeah.
remains to be seen where things go for the economy from here.
Yeah, I want to see the employment rate numbers in about a month or so. I think they're going to be kind of shocking
It could be.
because these are full-time jobs. Okay, and finally, I had to talk to you about this. Apple this week announced the iPhone 16e, and it sounds like, well, first of all, it sounds incredible for the price. I have to ask, I mean, it's got everything. It's got the new A18 chip. It's got the Apple CI, the first cellular modem designed by Apple. It's got apparently a 48 megapixel camera that's gorgeous, including telephoto. And it's added a whole bunch of satellite features like emergency SOS, roadside assistance messages, and find me via satellite, combined with Apple Intelligence, the new Apple AI intelligence. That's a hell of a product. That's the kind of product that even you might buy. I wanted to ask you that. You always buy the previous generation, but this one almost looks good enough to convince you to buy it. Would you buy this one?
You're saying I'm cheap, Michael? No, yeah, I've always liked the SE. And so I like this for the same reasons. A powerful phone that has just about all the features
Yeah.
at a lower price. And Apple did this for many years and many iterations with the SE. The SE was good, I thought, A, if you need to save a few bucks on your iPhone. B, if you're just trying it out, maybe you haven't had one before and you want to try it without spending $1,000. And C, like me, if you had young kids who were, like teenagers who were getting their first iPhones and you were like, A, I don't want to spend $1,000. And B, they're probably going to break this anyway within months. It all makes sense. And
Yep.
to keep this kind of product, albeit now at a slightly higher price than the SE, but considerably lower than the regular phones, I think is terrific. It's a great move, and I too am impressed with what it can do in a less expensive package. And I'm glad Apple is continuing to do this. I was always glad to see the various SEs because that meant there was something for people who are either younger on a budget, just trying it out, that didn't
Yeah.
have 11,
People like us.
$1,200.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people with kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but this looks so good, this product. Is it going to cannibalize the rest of the 16 line?
I mean, the SE did not cannibalize the other phones.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing no, not in a big way.
But you're getting a lot of bang for the buck with this one. I mean,
Yeah, profit margins will
they all
still
were
be.
good for their time, but this one is a beast and an
Yeah,
inexpensive beast.
some people who buy the newest phones, let's face it, are buying it because they're the newest phones.
Yeah.
And there are enough of those, I think to satisfy demand. I can't think of a single iPhone that has cannibalized another iPhone. And remember, not only did Apple have the cheaper SEs for years and years and years, but like you just alluded to, they always had a model or two previous to the new one that was still on the market for,
Yeah.
that would shave off 100 or $200. And people still bought the new phones in big numbers while maybe, being able to stay in the iPhone family with something a little less expensive. And I just thought overall that's a really good consumer
Well, I,
strategy.
I think Apple has built in one disincentive for the early adopters who like to flash their new machines. They're only going to be in black and white.
Yeah,
Initially.
but
Yeah,
that's
but
not.
yeah, but if I was a teenager having a black, iPhone and I can't have one of those radiation colored purple, blue things. But Apple's going to enable you to buy fancy colors a little bit down the line, a couple months from now, apparently.
Yeah, no, I'm glad these as a bargain shopper, as a parent, whatever. I'm glad to see these still around. I think it's a great move by Apple. And on the Android side, I would also say there are plenty of phones with plenty of great cameras,
Yeah.
lots of features that are less expensive than, the top of the line Google or Samsung. So good for all of that. It's
Yeah,
important.
and we're really blessed that we have an arms race that's
Yeah,
been going on now for 20 years in smartphones because we are the beneficiaries. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, it's like the Apple Apple. I had an Apple III. It was $4,000, you
Right.
know, and it was actually not a very good machine. But now, I'm doing this on a MacBook, and it's a third that price, and it's 1,000 times more powerful. I mean, we live in lucky times in that regard. I'm not sure, Moore's law ends, this ends, but boy, are we blessed right now.
Absolutely.
So, okay, that's it for now, folks. You can find us on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. You can see Scott on Facebook and X, and of course, every night on NBC Bay Area. And you can catch me regularly on the BBC World Radio show Business Matters. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.